my true pleasure to introduce Benjamin Bratton. For those of you who doesn't know me, I'm Fran Diaz Alonso. I'm a professor here at SIAD. A dear friend and partner in crime in many things with Benjamin. He had a big bottle of water, so I think it's going to be long. So relax. It's not going to hurt, I hope. So I thought, being Oscar season and all that, to do one of those stupid, common, obvious jokes in the introduction, which is called Benjamin Bratton is a Curious Case. I know, not that clever, but I couldn't come with anything better and explain you in 5 minutes why. See, introductions aren't supposed to be personal. They're supposed to be some sort of clever critical comment of the work of the speaker. That is extremely complicated in this case, because Ben is usually the one who writes the clever comments and critical thinking in my works and books. So I couldn't ask him to write the introduction about himself, which maybe is a good idea, but I thought for once I'll do the job. So this one is personal. Can we say that architecture would be better off without Benjamin? Probably, but it would be way more boring. Architecture is a generous discipline. It saves sociology from him. So we absorb him, and sociology will not have to suffer him. So that's how good architecture is. As I said at the beginning, Benjamin is a curious case. He's not a typical critic theorist. He believes in architecture, which is very unusual for a theorist and a critic of architecture. He believes that architecture can and should do more than what the common sense dictates. By the way, common sense is something that Benjamin is not known for. Chaotic organization is the best way to define his classes and conversations. Ben is literally and metaphorically speaking always in movement. Most of the time I don't get what he's talking about, but later I still don't get what he's talking about. It usually takes 6 months to get it, and the funny thing is he's mostly always right. So, the other movie that I want to quote in relation with the Oscar and Heath Ledger as the Joker, like in The Dark Knight, architect, we have some misplaced sense of self-righteousness and morals. Benjamin, with writing, conversations, interviews, etc., defied us to go outside our moral comfort zone. Like the Joker says, introduce a little anarchy, upset the established order, and everything became chaos. I'm an agent of chaos, and you know the thing about chaos, chaos is fair. And so to conclude, talking about the Joker and Ben, I love when he says, see, I'm not a monster, I'm just ahead of the curve. So, welcome, my dear friend, Benjamin Bratton.
Thank you very much. More ways than one for your kind introduction to my work. Thanks also to the student body for the original invitation to join you to speak today. It's for at least 2 reasons, particularly opportune time to do so. One, because as many of you know, I've accepted a professorship at UC San Diego, and so this chapter of my relationship with SIAD is a point of transition. Also because I think architecture itself, architecture itself is in a curious state. Architecture was a symbol of the bubble, and also a symbol of the bubble's collapse. Architecture was not only a chief beneficiary of the speculative real estate bubble, but provided the spectacular, decorative, symbolic, this conspicuous display of wealth, rendered as urban hood ornaments from Los Angeles to Dubai, to Beijing, to Bilbao, to Kazakhstan. Architecture's run as the repository and medium of bubble money meant that it sold its expertise less to the design of planetary space than to the rendering of global finance. The question faced by all of those who, like us here tonight, are concerned or obsessed, as the case may be, with how human culture expresses itself through the medium of the material world's own expression to us, that is architecture, is what now? My talk is about a few of these things, my own little way of taking stock and thinking out loud in public about what just happened and about what comes next. So, I've taught here since 2001. I have seen the changes take place, seen a lot of changes take place here, and the development of a style and mode of architecture that's come to define SciArt. A SciArt that began in the early 70s as a sort of, as someone explained to me once, as a sort of carpentry on acid, building directly with the world, and now I think with the position of Maya, working still directly with the Spinozian substance of the world, but a digital plasma at that. One of the ways in which I've had the pleasure and opportunity to participate in the ongoing SciArt experiment is with the XLab program with Hernan. A joint studio seminar project where we've asked students to design airports, homes, animals, skyscrapers, football stadiums, mega churches, human organs, and this year a house for cannibals. Here we are about almost exactly 6 years ago in New York at the first studio midterm, nervously waiting the reaction of our invited jury. There was Hani Rashid, Wendy Doubledom, Evan Douglas, our own Peter Zellner, and Ed Keller. Trying to look bored and self-assured. There's students on the right seemingly shocked and amazed by that the assembled journey actually liked what they were doing. Where the studio and seminar have tried to share a common place, and by enrollment, a shared audience. In the case of Hernan and myself, this is no way a merging or consensus, or even really a proper dialogue, but rather something less decidable and more risky, something more like an encounter between two poles of some spectrum or linked set of spectra. In the studio, largely taught by Hernan, on the one is a willfully aestheticized obsession with technique and, quote, empty form, but not only with form, but more importantly with images of empty form or empty images of form, or empty formal images, depending on your take. But here, this is a virtue. One pole and intrinsic intensivity of the architectural drawing project. In the seminar, on the other, largely taught by myself, a sociological, philosophical, theoretical, metacritical fiction that locates the architectural project, less than the form of the results, as a centripetal vortex of forces seen and unseeable that may be induced and deduced as that which the project is about, and that which extrinsic intensivities animate and limit the architectural drawing projection. The students then are forced to triangulate a kind of middle that isn't even a middle, and forced to manage the unresolvability of these demands. Ideal training, I think, for anyone who would want to begin their own practice. It is not then theory as pre-production, as a sort of reframing of potential issues at hand for a critical exacerbation. And indeed, the project in that sense has perhaps vanished in a way. Nor is it theory as post-production, as a kind of retroactive expert historicizing and ranking of ideological efficacy or historical purity of an elite discourse using art historical methods, literary metacritical, or optical tendencies, but a totally quixotic attempt to position the points and clicks of the design process as a mode itself of theorization, if not always critique, and of the theory critique as an intrinsic employment of extrinsic forces and conditions, which is to say, basically hopeless. Especially when students, as one said to me once, quote, hate reading and just wanted to cope with Ross Lovegrove off of conference tables designed by Zaha Hadid for Amber made it to sell to Brad Pitt and Lehman Brothers. Fortunately, that's not always the case, and perhaps with the crash, that career option is fully off the table. So, when Hernan and I arrived, which at the same time, Maya arrived, and I watched it displace other